All right, let me see. It looks like we're feeding through to the folks out there. While I'm waiting for confirmation from you guys out there that our audio and everything's loud and clear, you're going to want to make sure that you're hearing us tonight. I want to remind everyone to go to hankstrange.com, get up on our email list. That's one of the best ways for you guys to get in touch with us. If you look around hankstrange.com under the Strangerholics tab in the menu, you can find all the different platforms and things like that we're on. If you're looking for us during these times of social media purgatory, which is, I don't know, I don't think that's a real word, but and also you can find on hankstrange.com the 2020 was hell in a handbasket patch, which we have out right now. Mike, Detty, do you have one of these hell in a handbasket patches?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, okay. We got to make sure you get one. Vincent Cefalu, do you have one?
I do not, but I expect to get one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We just got to get your address, and we won't share it with ATF or anyone else. We'll definitely send some to you, Vince and Mike. Okay. Let's get this kicked off. Big show here, so make sure everyone out there smashes the thumbs up, shares this if you can. We'll take questions and stuff like that from you guys once we get through basic intros. I'm gonna kick everything off right now with the opening.
Welcome back to the Hank Strange Situation.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, smash those thumbs ups, ring the bell so you can be notified every time we go live. We are live. We have a tradition here that everyone must do. Both of these guests have been on before. It's called Jazz Hands. Here it goes. We're taking it back from the terrorists, guys. I know these are two tough guys. Come on, Mike Detty. Let's see those jazz hands if you can hear. There you go. Mike Detty doing jazz hands. And we are live. I hope you guys have your big girl panties on out there. This is episode 702 of the Who Moved My Freedom podcast. My guests tonight are former ATF, retired ATF agent Vincent Cefalu. Here he is. Vincent, what does your t-shirt say right there? Let's see. Can we see your t-shirt?
Undercover cop.
Oh, okay. All right. That's cool. That's being stealthy. And then we have Mike Detty. Mike Detty, you don't have any kind of crazy t-shirts like that going. Looking very respectable. Collared up.
Thank you.
Yes. How are you, Mike?
Doing well. Thank you, Hank.
Yes. And Mike, if you guys don't know, Mike is a gun writer. You write for gun magazines. You're a gun guy. You're an FFL. And you were involved in the, I call it Operation Wide Receiver, but Guns Across the Border, right?
Right. Operation Wide Receiver was the investigation I was involved in. Guns Across the Border was the name of my book.
Right. And basically that was about the ATF had an investigation going with folks who were making straw purchases kind of from you and taking those across the border into Mexico, and you participated in that and kind of didn't really work out so well.
Well, everything worked out in the end. So
okay.
We're happy for that. I'm glad to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I was recruited by ATF to work as a confidential source and facilitate the guns to these people taking them across the border.
Right. Okay. And Mike has a book out on that you guys can find out there. It's Guns Across the Border, right?
Guns Across the Border is the hardback. It's probably not available anymore. Operation Wide Receiver is the same book in paperback.
Okay.
That's available through Amazon.
Right, absolutely. Maybe Lola will throw up some links to both of these guys' books. I don't happen to have Wide Receiver or Guns Across the Border here. I do have Rat Snakes, which Vincent wrote. But I'll find both of those books and throw them up here as we're talking on the screen. I would ask you guys to go out there, support Mike Detty, get that book. Support Vincent for coming on here as well. Get his book, read it, listen to it on audio. Both of these books are on Audible. You can listen to them on audiobook. So just make sure you guys check that out. Vincent, obviously you were here, what was that? Was it a couple of months at this point? I don't know.
Yeah, 2 months ago.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. And then we've got Vincent for at least the first hour here. We've got Vincent. I think you're having some kind of surgery tomorrow.
Right, in the morning, gonna get my carotid laid open, so I'm gonna get in bed.
Okay. So, first of all, good luck on that surgery. Hope it goes well. I don't know if you could talk about what exactly happened there. I know you've lived what you did undercover. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Well, I've taken some bumps and bruises.
Mm-hmm.
My lifestyle wasn't the most healthy, so I get to pay the piper.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that all goes well, man, and you recover from that quickly.
This will be the last show I'll be on.
No. We don't want that. We don't want that. We would love to see you back. Does that surgery have anything to do with smoking? Because you're still smoking.
It's either smoking, the drinking, or the bad diet, or
Okay.
all of them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which I'm not going to change anything. So I mean,
Okay.
that's a good point.
All right. So you're still okay. Obviously, you're still drinking, still smoking, still doing all that stuff. All right.
Drink, smoke, shoot, baby.
All right. Good. How are you health-wise, Mike? You good?
Everything is good for me. I got this new chocolate lab since you were out here last time, and he gets me up every morning. We go for a 2 or 3 mile run into Wash. So I never thought I'd run again. In fact, the last time you were here, I think I just had my hip replaced.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Wow, you're running on a hip replacement? Kudos, brother. Good job.
and 2 ankle replacements.
Yeah.
I love that dog, by the way. I follow you all the time, and every time you post it up, I'm like, oh, I'm on.
Yeah.
If he could just find a woman for me, I'd be in good shape.
Okay. He's slacking. You gotta get the work done.
He's more Labrador and not so much Retriever.
Yeah. One thing you guys both having, first of all, you're both tough guys. I think Mike is I always have thought that about Mike. He's a really tough dude. You're both Marines. That's something you guys have in common.
Semper Fi, brother.
Yeah. Kind of like completely different. Mike looks so, he looks like a FBI, ATF. He looks like some kind of agent, Mike, right? I mean, people could.
Well,
disagree.
yeah, I've kept short hair all my life and
Yeah.
not got any tattoos or anything. So
Yeah, you look all official and presidential, like maybe Secret Service dude or whatever. And then Vince looks just like, oh, okay, this guy's a criminal. I don't even need to see any kind of background checks.
But see, Vince is smart because nobody looks at him and goes, "That's a fucking agent."
Yeah, I mean,
right?
No, listen, wearing undercover cop, they're even going to look, there's no way. This guy, come on.
Dude, this is my favorite shirt. It never fails. I don't care what bar I go into, what grocery store. Somebody, like a bunch of somebodies, will go, "Oh my God, you're an undercover cop," and I'm like, "Shh, shh."
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, I don't know, Vincent, have you got a chance since you came on? Obviously, we did some videos, and there are lots of people that were really upset about that. I think in the gun community, there's a lot of guys that aren't very happy about law enforcement. I don't know. I would consider both of you guys are in the gun community, right? I don't know, Mike or Vincent, if you would agree or disagree with that. I found there's people who don't like any kind of law enforcement, and they specifically in the gun community don't like ATF agents. Am I wrong in that assessment?
No, I think it's a fair assessment. I think we've probably earned that jacket with some questionable leadership over the years. We can't quit shooting ourselves in the foot.
So to speak.
We haven't had
there goes
permanent director since 2005,
Yeah.
I mean,
right. So I think that was there were people who actually really enjoyed it. There were people who were like, you have to have this guy on again, and then there were folks like, never have this guy on. And then there were a lot of people who said, you have to have Vince on with Mike Detty. That's how it has to go down. because obviously, Mike, you went through your things, but I think like if you go back to, because we've known each other now for years. I think if I go back to the years, I think you were maybe a little bit more upset about this in the beginning, but maybe time has kind of like made it easier for you to look back at it. Am I wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, time has a way of helping you put things in perspective, and the biggest thing is I'm here, I'm still alive. The thing was, the way that they used me, I didn't care too much for. I thought I was really helping them take down a cartel, which is what they told me I was doing. And I was happy to make that sacrifice to get involved that deep, because I thought that was a pretty worthy cause. But once I found out that it was never about taking out a cartel, it was just about sending guns to Mexico. And when I became a liability is when they realized that I knew too much and that I'd been recording them and keeping notes and so forth. That's when they decided, hey, let's let these guys take care of them. When I say these guys, I mean the cartel guys, and started putting my name out in the court docs, which was something I was assured was never going to happen. That pissed me off a little bit, but like I said, time. I've had time to think about it, and I shouldn't take this personally because it wouldn't matter if it was me or Vince or Hank that had been involved in this. We were all going to suffer the same fate. So in that regards, I don't take it personally like that anymore. This is just the way the government operates, and I wish I could say it was just limited to ATF, but we know that's not true.
Yeah. I think we've seen, unfortunately, in the last few years, we've seen that with lots of alphabet agencies. I mean, even the FBI. Remember and when Vincent was on, we were talking about FBI versus ATF, and FBI always had like this high ideal in people's minds, right? Or held a high position in everyone's mind, like the cream of the top, the cream of the crop, the top of everything in terms of integrity and all that.
That's not the case anymore.
No. Yeah, I don't think that's the case with a lot of these government agencies, and in a lot of ways they're being used politically to go after people, including president, right? So, I mean, and the crazy thing about it is that no one, or not enough people in America think that's a terrible thing. You had no one resigning, no one punished or anything like that, even though the FBI clearly went after a president. We're talking about what happened with Mike Detty. Vince, do you have an opinion? Have you followed?
Nothing happened to anybody that trick-fucked Mike. They sidestepped it. They gave blank redacted documents, gave marginal testimony. I'll never forget the day Daryl Issa held up that totally redacted page and was trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And they just refused to answer the questions.
Yeah. What should have happened to those guys? Can you, what do you think? As the guy on the inside and the ATF agent. Now, did you ever deal with guys like Mike? Because I think the difference with what you described when you were on, when it comes to Mike Detty, he wasn't a criminal. This is a guy that has led a pretty straight life, served his country, all that kind of stuff, been a good guy his whole life.
Patriotic thing.
Right.
That's what we always tried to do, was enlist the FFLs with some integrity to, help us keep a finger in the dam. Let's slow down these guns. I hate to use the word informant or confidential source, but we used dozens and dozens of FFLs over my career. But the difference was we didn't put them in the trick bag. We protected them, we concealed their identities, and we didn't ask them to do that. That foolishness they pulled out there was a lack of leadership, a bureau out of control, and we're still paying for that now. Nobody has forgotten Wide Receiver or Fast and Furious.
And people did get hurt. I mean, not just people on our side and good guys get hurt, but lots of people in Mexico got hurt with the guns that were allowed to go over there.
Hundreds of people were assassinated with guns that we let go across the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, I understand where Mike is coming from, right? I mean, you got to understand that. This is a guy who's got to live with all the things that went on here, and I kind of get it, right? If you know, at the end of the day, like Mike said, you got to realize the universe, it's not just you. It's everyone that they do this to. But whenever I think about it, it makes me mad. You know?
Yeah, I've been embarrassed, angered. I know the people that were involved in those investigations, and they abused our authority. They failed to remain apolitical. You know, they got involved in politics, and that's what scares me now about the Bureau. The new administration has made it clear that they're on a mission to go after guns, guns in general, not even people breaking the law, just the guns themselves. And if ATF doesn't stand up and go, no, that's not what we do. We don't go after law-abiding citizens with guns. We go after criminals, armed career criminals, convicted felons, terrorists, biker gangs, street gangs. We could end up being a puppet of this administration.
I think end up is probably underestimation. I mean, I think already, even before the administration has taken over, they're kind of like a puppet. Mike, I don't know if you're following any of this stuff. I know you do write gun stuff. Are you following anything about, you know, with what's going on with the ATF for the last year, maybe the last 3 months of last year at all?
Yeah, I mean, specifically about the brace, the brace stocks that people are using. I think anytime you have an agency that says this product is okay, and then for no apparent reason, after a certain amount of time says, no, that item's not okay, we're changing the classification on it. Now if you have one of these, you're a felon. How can that be? I mean, I'm a person that follows the law, and when they said, okay, these arm braces are legal, I went out and I bought a few of them because it's cheaper than doing the paperwork to make an SBR. And I've got SBRs too. But for them to turn around and say, you know what, we don't think people should have these. We just can't trust people with short AR-15s or AKs or whatever.
Well, and not even in a reasonable amount of time. They let 4 million of them get out into the public, and then I'm reasonably certain acquiescing to the political winds said, oh, we can start calling these things back and whatever. That's not what we're about.
Do you guys think they ever really liked the idea of the pistol arm brace? You think they ever liked that idea?
They must have, because ATF errs on the side of caution every time. And if they have an ability to prohibit or outlaw or regulate a specific firearm, we do it. And then we let the courts or the NRA or whoever fight us on it, and we win or lose. I don't know why they picked that fight after they approved them. I mean, they were approved nationwide.
Well, after they approved them, then they came out with that letter a couple of years later. It says, oh, if you shoulder one of these arm braces, then you're breaking the law. And then after that, they issued another letter that said, no, we're mistaken. You can shoulder that brace without breaking any laws. So they already came out and said, you can't do it. And they said, you can do it. And here just recently, they're trying to say, no, you can't. And by the way, we want them back. That's just crazy. You know, ATF has this long history of creating crimes to aid an investigation. And we talk about poor Mr. Weaver. We talk about the people at Waco. You look at Fast and Furious and Wide Receiver. These were investigations where they actually created or facilitated a crime for the purpose of an investigation. Do you agree with that, Vince?
I think I would probably agree in general terms. However, clearly the entrapment issue was proven in Randy Weaver's case. But entrapment or no entrapment, and I'm not justifying it, it was a horrible, it was a perfect storm. But at no time do you get to shoot a U.S. Marshal and refuse to show up at court. If they were to come right now and say, hey, Vince, you got one of these short barrel rifles, we're charging your ass or anything, I'm not going to stand off and execute the marshals to come get me or anything. I'm going to go to court and say this is bullshit. You guys approved them when I bought it, and we'll go the route we go.
Okay.
As far as Waco goes, that was a train wreck, and to this day I will always be proud that somebody stepped up. FBI had that in their lap for years, and they said this is it's a powder keg. We're not going to get involved with this cult-like group and everything. Bottom line was that, dude, they were manufacturing and possessing illegal Title II weapons, and they were then looking for the apocalypse, and they got it. Now,
Right.
I'm not justifying the raid or anything that led up to it or the way we conducted ourselves. I'm just saying we were there for a lawful purpose. We had all the probable cause in the world, and the ultimate investigation proved we were right. They had hand grenades, they had machine guns, converted weapons, no registration, no occupational tax stamp. They were breaking the law far and wide. So I just want to be clear on that.
No, I think I understand that. And it's just like what happened recently in D.C. I don't think that people should so easily go out there and start attacking other people, for that matter, much less government officials or law enforcement or anything like that. But however, I have to say there's a couple of things here, and I see people mentioning this. One, if you're saying that there's no reason why people should attack a government agent, an ATF agent that's coming to serve a warrant or whatever it is, then what is the reason that they would attack or kill people?
Self-defense.
Okay, so do the people have that same right of self-defense?
Not in the face of lawful government authority. All he had to do was, all David Koresh had to do was put his hands up and say, go ahead and search the place. We got nothing to hide.
Okay, so the women and children that have been killed by the ATF, right, or people's dogs, etc.
Okay, back up. What women and children were killed by the ATF?
Okay, so for example, I'm just going to give you an example. Armament and Axis says, and the ATF had no right to shoot a woman holding a baby at Ruby Ridge.
That was FBI.
Okay. CB says can kill a kid, though.
That was Lon Horiuchi from the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
They took over the scene, and they made the judgment to shoot her as a combatant or a aggressor or whatever.
And in your mind, was that okay?
Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
There,
Appalachian Gunrunner says Vicky Weaver. That's the same person I think that we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, a lot of times these situations, and I could tell you, there's been situations when police officers or law enforcement behind a badge do illegal things. So for example, there's stories, and I can't remember the exact name right now, but there's a story, I remember this in New York, of a young black kid that actually worked for police officers in New York selling drugs for them. So in other words, in New York, the police officers would seize drugs, take those drugs and put them back on the streets and have these kids selling drugs for them.
That is such a minute percentage of law enforcement. And I've worked all over the country.
I'm not saying it's all law enforcement, but the point I'm getting to is when there was other law enforcement that started investigating that case, and those police officers decided that they had to eliminate this kid who was becoming a witness, and they went after him. And when they went after him, I don't think any of them died, but they all got shot. And then for weeks, if not months, in New York City, they were trying to find this guy, and every time they would come up on him, he actually wound up being pretty badass. He kept shooting up these guys. And when he was eventually arrested, he was cleared of all those charges in court except for having a gun illegally because he was defending himself against these police officers that wanted to assassinate him. So that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes you're in a situation.
So I understand. This guy who had the gun to protect himself against police officers, he was selling dope for the cops.
Yes. And then the cops decided to kill him.
No, you know what? That goes all the way down the toilet. Next subject. You sleep with dogs, you're going to get fleas. The dirty cop should go to prison. He should go to prison. You don't get to saddle up and do a bunch of heinous, illegal drug dealing with cops, for cops, and expect that the cops don't go to jail and you go to jail or get shot or whatever occurs. If you're out committing crimes, you're out there committing crimes. Don't try to candy coat that.
Regardless of who you are, regardless of what side of the law you're on. What I'm saying to you, if you're the person on the opposite side of the law when they're doing something wrong and they're coming after you and maybe they want to kill you, don't you have you can't just go, okay, I surrender, and then they kill you and then plant a gun on you or whatever. I'm not saying that's every situation here.
No, that's like I said, that's such a minute portion of law enforcement and civilian interaction. Let's face it, our cops are good, our feds are good. They're out there trying to keep people alive, protect the public, do some ne'er-do-wells come in, end up in there, a bad judgment, corrupt, low morals, no ethical standards. Absolutely. But in 27 years, total of 36 years in law enforcement, 27 with ATF, I probably met or run into or come across 8, 10 real dirty cops that, deserve detention.
And what happened to those guys? Did they eventually meet justice?
Some.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, definitely. So I'm not saying that it rises to the same level of a crime, but definitely what happened with Mike Detty and what happened with guns going across the border illegally into Mexico, that the ATF, let's say a regular person was out there taking guns and sending them across the border. You would say, hey, we need to go after those people, right? Those guys need to be under the prison. But in that case, the folks at the ATF that allowed that and the people in the government that allowed that, there's not one person that I know of that paid any kind of price for that.
They should have been removed. They should have been terminated and potentially prosecuted. Leveraging an FFL like Mike to do presumably illegal acts for the greater good is not the way we do business. It never has been. It was some neophyte supervisors, some unskilled agents. They saw the big kahuna at the end of the rainbow and said, oh, we got a big deal here, and we got this guy who's willing to help us. And it was ill-advised from the get-go. That would have never happened in my day. My first-line supervisor would have shut that down and said, this is ridiculous. Stop.
If I could interject, a lot of the problems here in Arizona started with our special agent in charge, Bill Newell.
Bill Newell's a tool.
Yes, he is. And
that rhymes.
He orchestrated wide receiver as well as fast and furious. Now, Vince and I share a mutual acquaintance, and I had dinner with him one night and asked him, I said, how is it nothing happened to him? He said, well, the guy didn't have anything to fear because he was taking orders from above him with the assurance that if anything ever happened, nothing bad would happen to him. And you have to look at it. You say, this guy wasn't removed. He wasn't, I think they did change in office, but they moved him back to his home state and paid him to not go to work. And I think he's probably retired by now. He got a full pension. Never even got a letter of censure for what he did. He went in front of Congress and absolutely lied through his teeth. They said, well, what about these walking guns? And he said, well, according to my definition, we never walked any guns. But he didn't give his definition of what walking guns was.
Mm-hmm. Bill Newell, if they would have given him qualified immunity and put some pressure on him, it would have gone right up the chain of command. That thing, Bill Newell couldn't find a convict in the penitentiary. Bill Newell was acting on direction from the Department of Justice. They were trying to lay a baseline. What happened as soon as Fast and Furious hit? Oh, we're going to ban all multiple sales of rifles along the border for 2 months or however long they did that. That was the whole goal, I believe, from the beginning. He was just a puppet and a coward. And, yeah, he suffered no consequences. They sent him back to Utah as a organized crime coordinator or something, grade 14 with 2 years salary retention, which gave him his I-3, retired out, and nothing happened.
That was a reward as far as I'm concerned, nothing close to a punishment. And as a matter of fact, an ATF agent, one of your brothers that helped break that story, was punished.
Oh, John Dodson?
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
Mike? I mean, that guy was punished.
John got his head caved in.
Yeah, so when people are looking at this, I'll give you guys an example. And I'm not, Vince, I like you. Whether people like you or don't like you, it doesn't matter to me. I like you. I've always liked Mike. Mike I look at as like my dad or something like that, And the thing is, if you you're older than me, Mike, so you got to get that. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just teasing. I was looking to see if he caught that or not. I was going to say grandpa, but,
Hey, thanks.
He could probably kick my butt, but let's,
Hey, let me point out, you made my point perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
The haters of ATF out there, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
For shooting ourselves in the foot. But what happened? An agent stepped up, laid his ass on the line, and came clean about all that shit. Ended up getting transferred a bunch of times. They tried to go after him personally, financially, professionally. They tried to undermine his character publicly and everything. But at the end of the day, he stood up and he said, this is not what we're about. We don't do this. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, somebody, your readers or your followers, have to acknowledge that. But for John Dodson and a few others like Mike and some of them, nobody would even know about this. But they were willing to take the beating to go, oh, this, no, I draw the line at this, I took an oath.
Yeah. When it comes to honor, I respect guys like Mike, yourself, and John Dodson for doing what he did and taking the blows from that, from his own fellow agents, right? From the guys that he served with, like turning their backs on him and all kinds of stuff. What I wanted to say to you was, and I'm not trying to paint you guys into a corner, but the people in general in America looking at all the things happening. Last year, for example, there were cities burning in America. Cities burning. There were people protesting. The protests got co-opted, and the protests led to riots and cities burning and people dying. Now, that same thing happened a week ago in D.C., and when that affected the politicians out there, they said, how dare we even think about approaching Congress and making them feel uncomfortable? How dare we do that? Now they want to impeach the president. They're like deleting platforms
the
and doing.
Hypocrisy runs deep. I didn't see one of those protesters at the Capitol, and I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, I didn't see one of them walk out with a big screen TV. Nobody got new Nikes. Nobody's businesses got destroyed. No police officers were cowering in a building having Molotov cocktails thrown at them. So for them to compare what happened last week, because it, like you said, it affected them. It was not okay. It was not good. But it was a far cry from what happened in Minneapolis, Seattle, Chicago, LA, San Francisco. Far cry.
There were people straight up murdered. People, Antifa and other thugs were out there basically running protection schemes on business owners and taking over people's houses and doing all kinds of stuff. And none of these politicians did anything about it.
No.
Okay, well, I mean, I think Trump's tried to do something. I'm not here to defend Trump or anything like that. But he tried to do something.
I can see with the DOJ ramping up and everybody's trying to get in the good graces of the new administration. ATF, FBI, they're all posturing to try to suck up to the Biden administration. Oh, we're going to prosecute to the nth degree these 170 people who went in there. You know, I got no problem with prosecuting them for trespassing or whatever the violation is, entering Congress without permission. But trying to make these people out to be terrorists and anarchists, they were the most well-behaved rioters. My friend just told me, one of my ATF friends just said, dude, we get an F in rioting. Because they were respectful. They were, notwithstanding the couple incidents inside the Capitol, that was a pretty weak-ass protest.
So how should the people look at this, and where do you guys, I want to know what you think about this specifically, Vince, and then I also want to know what Mike thinks, what his thoughts on this. How should the people of America looking at this, how should they feel about this? Where is the line where you think they should say, no, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to allow our government to run over us. And even if they use, law enforcement or federal agents or whatever to do that, we're not going to allow it. Like, where is that line? Where's the point?
I think we've probably hit that line. There's so much craziness going on out there, but once you start, I'm a closet military historian, and I read a lot of books about the world wars and the things that led up to them. And, with Goebbels being the first one to start clamping down on, media and putting the message out and controlling the message, this foolishness I've seen this week is sickening. And nobody I've talked to disagrees with me. Taking people off of social media, only those who espouse one side can be accepted and the others are shut down. Our government cannot go that way because it's gonna be nasty.
So what do you think? What do you think you would do if you were the folks out there looking at this? And I'm not trying to get you to say something that, I'm not trying to set you up or anything like that. I think people have a right to be angry.
But I absolutely would hold the line. I would absolutely blow up my congressmen, my senators' phones. I would, if there's a local peaceful protest at a state capitol or a federal building in your city, and make it known so it stings. When Biden and them come in, they know, be careful. Be careful. You're treading on people's rights, and they're only going to take so much.
Okay. Mike, what do you think about this?
I think we'll know we're in real trouble. And, We'll know we're in trouble when we have police officers refusing to obey orders that they're given, when we have National Guard leaders that are refusing orders because they're saying it's not a lawful order, doesn't fit with our Constitution. When we get to that point, then we know it's probably time for us to pick up our rifles. Mm-hmm. I think we're a far way away from that right now. And I can tell you one thing, if the Democrats continue on this course like they are right now, to just burn all their bridges, you have people talking about putting Trump supporters' kids in re-education camps, crap like that, nonsense like this. It's just going to add fuel to the fire.
Yeah, I see this.
So we're still trying to swallow the results that a guy that stayed in his basement for the last year was able to trounce Trump handily in the election, and that he had a bigger turnout of black voters, even more than came out to vote for Obama. Either time. Excuse me, and I didn't mean to mispronounce his name, Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. That we have black voters that are so enthusiastic about Joe Biden or hate Trump so much that they turned out in record numbers. No, I don't accept that. And people say, well, there's no proof there was anything going off. You're like, well, hell, there wasn't. It's just that we haven't been able to find the right federal judges to present that evidence to that could do something about it.
We haven't been able to find anyone in law enforcement to even say, hey, can we take a pause? There's definitely some things that went wrong here. Look, I can tell you right now, there's still people in America that haven't received things that were sent out to them before Christmas. Why? Think about that. United States Post Office has still lost things. These are the people who were handling ballots. We saw people posting videos that they were doing things. There was all this kind of evidence that went out there, proof that voting machines were hacked, all kinds of stuff, and no one said, hey, let's take a look at this. Everyone, including Republicans, have turned their back on Americans. Look, we all know that Democrats and the left is terrible, right? We all know what they're up to. The most heartbreaking thing, the thing that's the most discouraging to the people out there, is that the folks they thought they were on their side have also turned their back on them. My understanding is they've impeached Trump again, right? Mm-hmm. With the support of Republicans, they've impeached a sitting president in his last week of presidency.
Make no mistake, those that group of Republicans who tolerated Trump, rode on his coattail, never wanted him in there. He was cleaning up the swamp. He was exposing the corruption and the overspending and the foolishness in government, poor administration decisions before. They didn't want him in there. They're just like, well, he's our guy, so that's who we got to be with right now. But the minute they could cut and run, many of them have.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, he stepped on a lot of toes. I mean, you look at the names he called Lindsey Graham during the debates before he was elected, and Marco Rubio and all those other
I agree
people.
with every single name, but I don't know if that makes it right, but I agree with it.
He's bruised a lot of feelings, and he's a rough, gruff guy, and that's how he worked as a businessman. That was his appeal to me, was he was not a career politician. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at you get a freshman.
He wasn't a politician, period. This was his first time ever doing anything like that.
You get a freshman congressman that gets elected, and they're full of fresh ideals and values and so forth. And 6 years later, they're a millionaire, and they're as swampy as the rest of that group. How does that happen? Why does that happen? If they're making $130,000 a year as a congressman, how do they become a millionaire? It just doesn't make sense. But Trump was the kind of guy, I mean, he couldn't be bought. He had all the money he needed, right? So figure that's a perfect match. If he can run a business, he can run something like our government. And the thing about it is in the free market, you can't find one thing the government can do better than free enterprise. You name it. Start with healthcare, start with banking, automobiles, anything. The government can't do something better than our free market enterprise. And if you want something to drop in price, enter the competition factor. That was the thing that appealed to me about Trump. Did I care that, that he said, yeah, all you grab these girls by their yoo-hoos and stuff? I could care less. Because I'm a guy, I've been in locker rooms. I know how guys talk when they're alone.
But we also know what those guys have done. They've done all these people, especially the Me Too folks, have done a lot of terrible things themselves, like actual terrible things, not just talking about it.
Falwell is he's the overseer of the impeachment process. Mm-hmm. The dude employed his little hoe girlfriend, a Chinese communist, for 5 years.
FBI not doing anything about that.
Nothing. You know what I hope? And this, Mike will understand this, because I'm close with the Terry family, very close. If his only last act, I hope he does a lot of things. I hope he declassifies a ton of shit. But if he would just lift that presidential executive privilege with Eric Holder over Fast and Furious and release those documents, and showing that Eric Holder lied under oath to Congress and everything else, which we already know, I would feel somewhat proud, that at least somebody got justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike, what do you say to that?
I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday, but apparently President Trump released a video yesterday. And it showed him at the podium making his speech, and parts of it were cut from different speeches. But basically, the end of the video says, just wait for January 20th. And it makes me want to think that he's going to release some information. This is not a guy that's going to go out with a whimper. Mark.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And he's not going to take the nuclear suitcase and start dropping bombs on people or anything, but he's going to release some very important information. And at that point in time, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, people are going to need to make a decision. Does this information change the way I look at politics, or do I hate Trump so much that I'm just glad he's out of office? And I don't care that this congressman has sex with little boys. I don't care that this guy made $10 million off a contract that was foreign aid to a different country, and he got that money in a kickback.
Or that some of these guys are selling military secrets to enemies of our country.
Right. It's going to be a challenging time coming up here in the near future. As for what Trump does, I would love to see Trump start a third political party, because our grand old party needs to be refreshing.
Yeah, it is not.
It's not. And you look at Mitch McConnell. Holy smokes. He needs to be gone. He needs to be out of there. We all know what Nancy Pelosi needs to do.
Mike, they're getting the swamp back.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. And that would be my hope, is that Trump spends his energy on developing a third party that is going to be so dynamic and so significant and so relevant that people just leave the Republican Party and go to whatever his party is called. I hope he does that instead of developing a new TV show or something.
I would say, so if I've said this before, I would say that no one needs to feel sorry for Trump. He came in like a man, he's going to go out like a man, and he is the president of the United States of America, and they can never remove that. I think that's a good thing that you're saying, Mike. I would like to see him help develop more people to replace the swamp that's out there. Mm-hmm. Not just like trying to run. He was president. He's president right now. Whether they take him out of there kicking and scratching and whatever, or he walks out of there proudly, no one could take that away from him. Only 45 mofos have ever done that, right? So he's done it. And what we need to do is think about the future, like our kids, grandkids, our friends and family going forward from this, living in America and preserving what is the American dream. This is the best place on the face of the planet. I think personally he did a good job, considering all the things that happened, and considering that we've never seen anything like this. Not even when Obama was in office did we see a president be attacked every single day of his presidency. You know, but we've got to move on, because it's the folks on his side that were the most destructive, those Republicans in that party that didn't want him to be the nominee in the first place. You know, that we see right now in these last days, like just it's like Caesar and Brutus or something. Everyone's taking a chance at the knife and sticking the knife in on the way out.
Well, you know, the thing is about them shutting off his Twitter and his Facebook account. It's those people that are for that, and those people that congratulate that, are the people that have something to hide or are afraid of him. They're very afraid of him right now. They're terrified of what he might drop before he leaves office. Mm-hmm. And
I hope he does.
Oh, I can't imagine him not doing that.
What person had, so when they kicked Trump off of Twitter, he had 88 million. He was headed towards 100 million people following him on Twitter. Are you guys aware of that?
Yeah, I knew that.
That is scary.
And
we're scary because of that.
Ayatollah Khomeini can have a Twitter account.
For sure. You know. Okay, so I know Vince, you know, we've got you here for maybe like 8 minutes, so I do want to get to some of the stuff from the last time, and we put up stuff. I don't know.
Did you want to talk about my book, Rat Snakes?
Sure, absolutely. I could show it. You know, I could absolutely show the book. Lola has thrown up links to both Rat Snakes as well as Mike Detty's books, Operation Wide Receiver and Guns Across the Border. There's links and things like that Lola has thrown up here. You know, when you were on, we talked about a bunch of different things, right? So one of those videos was who does the ATF go after, which actually wound up being, I'm going to throw it up on the screen. This happened like maybe a month ago, I think you were on. And that video, let's see, I'm going to pull it up right here and we'll take a look at the stats. So that video has 144,000 views. You know, And I asked you the question, I think we asked the question, who does the ATF go after? You answered that question. Lots of people got mad. Lots of things happened there. You know, I think to paraphrase what you said the ATF goes after the bad guys. In light of the things that the ATF has been doing since then, you know, do you still feel that way, that they're just going after the bad guys?
I'm extremely worried about the future for the ATF. We're sort of in a leaderless, we're like in a rudderless ship. We have an acting director who has her own agenda. The deputy director, the number 2 guy, was found to have perjured himself during some of the J. Dobbins stuff. I mean, that was the OAG, not me. They're bureaucrats, and I'm afraid they're going to cave to whatever winds blow. And if the new administration comes in and says, you need to start, you know, we're going to get a magazine tax, or we're going to outlaw these AR, we need you to start going. That's not the mission of ATF, and they should say, look, you know what, pass a law, amend the Gun Control Act to include anyone who's bought a AR-15 pistol. Well, then the law is the law. But you know as well as I do, it'd take forever, and they're never going to pass that law. But a bunch of executive orders or a bunch of pressure from the administration to create criminals out of previously law-abiding citizens, that's not going to bode well for the agency. And it's going to meet with resistance, and it's going to be a horrible scenario If I were the director, I'd say, look, we got the laws on the books, convicted felons, dope dealers, whatever, et cetera, are not allowed to possess firearms. You got to register machine guns. That's what we're enforcing. Beyond that, hand me a United States Code, an amendment to the Gun Control Act, and we will enforce that too. Until then, we're not your whipping dog. We're not your puppies. We're not going to go out and pursue an agenda. I'm just afraid that we don't have the leadership in ATF right now that would stand that ground and the autonomy, the apolitical view.
So here's Flying Rich gave us a couple of bucks. He says politics is just showbiz for the ugly. That's his statement. One of the things I would think is any more laws, like you said, pass a law, right? What I would say is the laws we already have are infringements on the Second Amendment. Any more laws are going to be further infringements on the Second Amendment. And Biden, if you look at his plan that he has to go after the Second Amendment, me personally, I'm not planning on complying with any of that. So they can pass all the laws they want. It would
be unconstitutional, and I don't think people need worry because I think they'll be tied up in the courts until this administration is come and gone. They're not going to be able to pass the laws and get the support to disarm honest, law-abiding citizens. They might make our lives miserable a little bit and create a bunch of drama, but at the end of the day, without a law, I don't believe the current laws are unconstitutional. We'll agree to disagree on that. In terms of the Second Amendment, I don't think the Second Amendment was meant for convicted felons or assholes or criminals to be able to possess guns. I don't think it was meant for drug dealers to be able to arm themselves, or bank robbers or anybody else to arm themselves. That wasn't the intention of the Second Amendment, never was.
I think there's a lot of laws now that are not... First of all, criminals don't care what the laws are. Bad guys, drug dealers, thugs, those assholes out there you're talking about, they don't care about the laws. It's the law-abiding citizen. Well, but the law-abiding citizens are suffering for the laws that exist out there, and then there's states that are just straight up not allowing American citizens to have access to their Second Amendment rights. So to me, that's why I feel that way.
But that's not an issue of federal jurisdiction or ATF jurisdiction. We enforce the federal gun laws, which, if you read them, they're pretty fair. They're pretty reasonable for the most part. Not to say there aren't things that could be tweaked, but generally speaking, they're aimed at public safety. Okay. But the bad guys don't follow those laws, and that's why we have prison sentences and what have you.
Okay, so for example, last time you were on the show, you said that you have an AR pistol, right? You have one of those.
No, I don't remember saying that.
Oh, you said that.
Well, I did, but my boat sank.
Right, okay, yes. And as I said, as an ATF agent, as a former ATF agent, however you want to look at it, you're not allowed that excuse. But if it comes to that they decide to go after braces even, for example, is this something that you plan on complying with and going along with?
I'd comply with the law. I don't know that I'd comply with an executive order or some ruling by ATF laws dialed up in the courts and being contested at every level, which it will be.
Do you have...
At the end of the day, if it went through the courts and the Supreme Court or however that process went through, and they ruled them to be illegal, I would probably comply with that if it was that specific. If they said all guns have to be registered, pay taxes, blah, 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 and magazines, yeah, you know what? Good luck. You better have a search warrant.
Okay. All right, Mike, did you want to reply to that?
Oh, I think I'm pretty close on that. Like I said, probably before we started the show, ATF initially approved these. If you remember back in 2013, these were called the Sig Braces. The first guns that these pistols that look like AR-15s, they have these braces, were made by Sig. And I saw those at the NRA show, and I thought, holy moly, that's legal?
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. And then somewhere a couple years later, ATF came out and said, you know what, these are legal until you put them against your shoulder to shoot. Now, that's not legal. And then maybe a year and a half later, they came out and said, you know what, yeah, you can put those against your shoulder and shoot them. That's where we're at right now, despite what happened in the last 2 or 3 months, where one office issued a letter that said the honey badger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
was an illegal gun.
Yeah. So one of the things, if I could just speak on this, and Vince, I don't know if you got a couple of minutes to bear with us. We are.
Yeah, I got a minute or two, man. I got bailed. Though.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that happened, I think, initially when the ATF approved the stabilizing brace, it was that specific design, that old ugly one that folks didn't like. And I think that after that, an industry was created around that. I think we can very fairly say that industry was created by SB Tactical. What happened is that after that, there was requirements that every new version of that they put out there be further approved of by the ATF. And I believe that SB Tactical said they try to get clarification on exactly what were the parameters for that, right? Because now you would have to send in a gun with a new brace on it, and the ATF has to look at it. If they say no, this is no good, you've got to start all over again, and that gets expensive. They didn't do that. SB Tactical was being told by the ATF, these new braces, if you put them on AR pistols, they become SBRs. They ignored that. Other folks were out there making things and did get approval letters for the new things. But there were cases where these new things that were being put out there that were licensed from SB Tactical were seen as SBRs. They were showing up and people were getting arrested and charged with crimes. And the ATF was coming in and saying, this thing is not the same as that original brace. And that's really how we got to this situation that we're in now, because the ATF is saying, well, these new things are really stocks. They're making them look like like something that goes over your arm and can stabilize it, but it's not really that. And then, even as you said, a lot of people just started doing it because, hey, I don't have to do the $200 tax stamp. This is an end run. But so this is how this situation is really becoming an issue right now. And even the ATF is saying those original ugly, no one likes them braces that are more flexible and can go over your arm, those are fine. But a lot of these new ones are not, and I believe that's what happened with Q, because Q licensed the newer ones from SB Tactical, not knowing that SB Tactical did not get approval letters from the ATF. And this went on for years.
Somebody just needs to call the director and say you're not an elected person to the legislature. Stop trying to make laws. Make fair rulings. When you make a ruling, stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't rocket science. We create our own problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we create them because depending on who's in office. None of this SBR stuff with these arm braces were mentioned. They've been out for years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard nothing about it. My friends have been telling me, oh, you got to buy one of these, you got to buy one of these, you got to buy one of these. And then when it became apparent that the new administration was going to hamper that, I went out and bought one.
Yeah. So yeah, with that I agree. I mean, and apparently the ATF was just sitting on it, not doing anything about it publicly, and maybe just privately.
There's a political advantage to making noise.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what a law enforcement agency is supposed to do.
No, just clarify this. Even if you've made it public now, clarify it and let companies out there that want to be in this business know what the parameters are so that they can function.
Exactly. And then if Congress wants to step in and outlaw them, which would be a total nightmare, it would never happen. They could never amend the Gun Control Act to do that. There you have it.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I don't want to, because I know you have the surgery, man, and
Yeah, I gotta go,
there's
man.
a lot of folks saying good luck to you with the surgery. Hope everything goes well.
Appreciate it.
Please let us know. I would love to have you back on. We're gonna say a prayer for you, man, that you
Appreciate it, brother.
get through that and you come back and you kick just as many asses as you've been doing.
Hey, Mike, talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, thanks
Good
so
luck.
much,
Semper
Vincent.
Fi.
Thank you. Semper Fi, brother.
All right, Vince. Vince was cool. Big thanks to him for coming on here, even though he has that surgery going on tomorrow. I meant that. I hope that everything goes well for him with that. I know it's a tough deal. I've been there myself. I know you have several times, Mike. You know.
If I could say something, and I wish I had a chance to say this while Vince was on, but I really owe him a debt of gratitude long before we had ever met electronically. Still haven't met in person. Due to his problems with ATF leadership, and Vince is a guy who ran afoul of ATF leadership because he exercised some morality and integrity, and that they asked him to do an illegal wiretap against some very bad people, and he said that's not how we do it. And that's what was the start of his problems. Ultimately, he started a website called cleanupatf.org. And it was through that website that I met Cheryl Atkinson, who was actually the first mainstream reporter to break the Fast and Furious story, the first one to interview John Dodson. And about a month after she interviewed John, she interviewed me. A nice lady. And at that time in my life, I want to say that extra bright spotlight that was put on me, thanks to Cheryl Atkinson, is probably one of the main reasons I'm still here to talk about it. So, again, Vince, if you happen to watch this in replay while you're recuperating, thank you again for cleanupatf.org. I think you're a hell of a guy.
Yeah, well said, Mike. I think you're making a really good point. I know a lot of people want to hate on him and they think he's just that guy. We have that conversation here where folks say, "Look, law enforcement, they're just gonna follow orders." I understand what you guys are saying, and you're probably true a lot of the time. But if we're upset about that, I think we also have to give some kind of respect to the law enforcement officers that don't do that and realize the price that they pay. I mean, because he did that, this guy was sidelined for a long time. I'm not trying to say
it ruined his career. I mean, it ended his career.
Yeah.
And not in a very nice way. And the same thing for John Dodson. But some people just looked at it as oh, great, I'm going on a paid vacation. Not these guys. These guys want to get there and go to work. They want to catch bad guys. That's what they were built for. That's in their DNA. And it was taken away from them. And the reason they do that is because they understand that's the most important thing in those people's lives and in their careers. So let's take it away from them. It's what it happened to Vince. It happened to John. It also happened to Jay Dobbins.
Yeah, if you guys want to read the book or even look it up, you'll see that he was basically, they tried to move him to Alaska when his kids were just finishing high school. There's so many things they did to him. They literally, at the end, they had him working from his home. Just sitting there collecting a paycheck, doing nothing, and people might think, oh, that's awesome. When it comes to guys, I think like you and Vince, obviously you don't want to live your lives. That's maybe an old school thing nowadays, but who wants to live their life getting paid to do nothing, right? We want to die with our boots on, fighting something.
I may have told you this before, but it's been 2 or 3 years ago. I had lunch with John Dodson, and I had sent him a message. Said, "Hey, I know you're in Tucson now, and that's where I live. I'd love to meet you in person and have lunch." And we did. We arranged. We met to have lunch, and no sooner did we sit down than his phone starts blowing up, and he says, "It's like this every day. There's nothing for me to do. They don't give me anything to do. I go to lunch, and all of a sudden they need me back at the office right away, and they blow up my phone until I get back there, and then I get back there, and there's nothing for me to do." He says it's just continual harassment. I said, why don't you just quit, dude?
That's what they wanted, but they wanted to break it.
How bad do you need to? He said, listen, when I go into work, people turn around and look at me. They turn their backs to me. If they're having a conversation, they stop talking. He said, the only reason I keep going is because I know it bothers them more for me to be there than it bothers me to be there. So in the meantime, I'm going to keep going. I'll do my job to the best of my ability, and screw them.
Yeah.
And
it's man shit. It's man shit, Mike. Man shit.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't, a lot of people, lots of things have happened to you. I know you personally. Lots of things have happened to you, man. You get up every day and kick ass. That's what I like about you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Perseverance has always been a strong trait in me and my family. And thank God I was born with that quality. There's been a lot of times where I've just been so disgusted and disparaged that I thought, why go work out? Let's just sit on the couch. In the end, who does that help? Who does it hurt? Working out's something I enjoy doing. You've seen my home gym, and I make good use of it. Now that I got this new dog who drags me out for a run every day, it's my best way of relieving anxiety and working with my demons.
Yeah, you're like so there's a comic book character that you always remind. It's something I want to say it's something dog or something like someone's gonna know, but you always you're like that old junkyard dog that's taking a licking, but he still keeps taking. If you come into the junkyard, you are getting torn up.
I remember you told me that when you were here. But,
and I admire that about you.
The compliment.
Yeah, it is a compliment, man. I like tough people.
So, going back to my story, when I received news that ATF had released my name in the court documents, and now not just the lawyers are the bad guys, but the bad guys knew that it had been me that actually set them up, and when they got discovery and saw videos of me selling them guns in my living room and audio recordings and so forth. At first, I just wanted to crawl under a rock. And I thought, you know what? This is not the way I'm going now. I'll go out guns a-blazing, screw them all. And if something happens and I get killed in my house or I kill 5 bad guys in my driveway, ultimately, it is ATF's responsibility for the way they handled this. So I'm going to take this mess. I'm going to make it as messy as I can because I'm the most vindictive person in this world. And I'm going to teach them a lesson. That was kind of my attitude, and it's still my attitude.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, and I really do encourage you guys to go check out Mike Detty's book, not just because he's my friend, but if you're a gun guy, you really need to take a look at Operation. I'm going to throw it up here real quick for a second for folks out there. Yes, I might, say whatever you want to say, but I think you guys should support Mike here and figure out what exactly happened to him. It's also an audiobook. I think Lola's got links and things like that in the description, and she'll throw those up. If you don't know, I'm just going to paraphrase this really quick or make this short, and then Mike can elaborate on it. Basically, there were folks coming to Mike was an FFL. I think you still are an FFL, right?
Actually, I have an FFL, but I'm not in business anymore. I have an FFL, so gun companies can send me guns to do reviews for the magazines. That's the only. Okay. So you're an FFL. You were selling guns. You were doing like the gun show thing, and there were folks coming to him that he thought was suspicious. He went to the ATF at the time that the ATF had decided to run this secret operation of letting guns walk, and they convinced Mike to go undercover and help them. And Mike did that, and including letting these guys from the cartel, from the Mexican cartels, make buys at his home. So when Mike says that the ATF just put him out there, what happened is that these folks from cartels went to his home where he still lives. And live here.
Yeah, he lives there. And they were made aware that this is the person who did this, right? And those guys are out there, and Mike is out there living in the same place. So just try to put yourself in that mindset for a couple of minutes and think, would you actually do that? And I've been to Mike's place. Mike is not just saying, you know, he's there, he's prepared. I would feel, I'm not going to feel bad for those guys, but they're going to have a bad day.
They better pack a lunch.
Yeah, they're going to have a bad day trying to get up in there. So, and we're going to get into this. I know B-Tamp wanted to know what surgery Vincent was having. I think he said thoracic, right?
He said something about splaying open his jugular, I guess to clean it out, maybe.
Yeah. Obviously, he's done a lot of hard living, you know. And
the thing about being a successful undercover agent is, he really didn't have to act. No. I mean, other than the breaking the law part. Mm-hmm. He didn't really have to act because he walked the walk and he talked the talk. He stood there with a cigarette in the side of his mouth and probably drinking a Jack Daniels. If you read his book, and I did as soon as it came out, there are some really hilarious moments. Mm-hmm. And the little bit of what people got to see of Vince on your podcast, there's one story in there about him. Him and Jay Dobbins were supposed to infiltrate a militia. And one of these guys thought he was a super badass tough guy. And he said something that rubbed Vince the wrong way. Vince put him in a headlock and stuck his 45 in his ear until the guy started crying. And that's just one of many humorous events that happened and that he talks about in the book.
Yeah, I think he really lives, he's still living it, obviously. Like, it wasn't, yeah. And he says it's weird, right? By the way, smash the thumbs ups for the folks who are out there, okay? I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Mike, we're going to get into some of Mike's story right now, but smash those thumbs ups. I appreciate you guys being in here. Big shout out to Harry's Holsters that sponsors the podcast. He makes what I think are the best Kydex holsters out there. You can use the code Hank Strange and get 10% off. The difference, like, with you two guys is what I kept thinking about. Like, all the similarities with you and Vince, and then all the differences. I kept thinking about that when I was listening to that audiobook. Because Vince, the beginning of it, he was like a bad kid.
Yeah, that was the thing, right? Nobody in his book, one of the things that really made me laugh where he was working an undercover case and he met a guy at a restaurant and he looks over and here's the priest from his parish that knew him growing up, that knew him to be just a shithead kid, right? So when the bad guy went to the bathroom, he went over and just whispered in the priest's ears, like, "Hey, I'm a cop now and I'm working a case, so please, don't acknowledge me or anything." And the priest's eyes got big because he's
really
he's a cop now.
Yeah. I mean, he was in juvie. He was getting arrested and getting into trouble, and then he switched his life around and went into the Marines. And I think to flip that back to you, you weren't a bad kid, right? When you were growing up, you were like the all-American type kid, I think, growing up.
Well, actually, it's going to sound corny to say this, but my biggest fear as a kid growing up is that I would do something that the cops came to the house and told my mom and dad, "Hey, your kid's up to no good" or something. That was really the thing I feared most. And it wasn't because they would beat me or spank me or punish me. It would be because I disappointed them, and I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be a disappointment to my parents. And my original career goal after college was I wanted to go into the Marines and do at least one contract, maybe two. And then I wanted to go into the FBI. And unfortunately, I ended up taking a medical discharge. And I knew that would preclude me from federal service as far as the FBI goes. So I didn't follow that path. Instead, I joined my father's company. He had a sports medicine company, and I worked there for 17 years till my older brother got control of it. But so with my story, I guess there was always that unfulfilled dream of being an agent, and maybe that's why I took this gun trafficking thing so seriously, was because I had to prove to myself that I was capable of doing that. That I could sit down at a table with cartel guys and make them think that I was just as screwed up and badass as they were. And the one thing that always surprised me is, even though we had ATF had wiretaps, there was never an instance where these guys were talking and said, "Hey, you think Mike is like a cop or something?"
Right.
Never happened. In fact, one of the guys, he was talking to somebody on the phone. He thought there was some kind of listening device in his garage, and in his garage is where he would take his car apart and stash these rifles before he crossed the border. He actually started taking drywall out of his garage looking for a bug. I kind of took that as a compliment. I thought, geez, maybe I should go to Hollywood or something, you know?
Yeah, well, I think you probably did a good job of scaring those guys, just from listening to in the book some of the things that came up on the wiretaps. But you could probably, I think I could see how people could think you're a scary guy, right? Because you're probably the movie stereotype of look, for a long time in movies, especially in the 80s, there were bad guys that looked like you, and I think that's what was operating with those guys, right? That you kind of look like Vince looks like in the movie, he's caricatured or a character type of the bad guy.
Right.
Right. Yeah. For sure. But you kind of look like that, oh, this is a tough old bastard. I don't really want to mess with this guy. Who knows? So, and I think they were buying into that. You must have been doing a good job of putting that forward, even though, because you were so like, when I think about your history, you said your dad did stuff in sports medicine. He was known in sports, right, for the folks who follow football.
Yeah, Dad was the head trainer for the Philadelphia Eagles from 1963 to 1975, and he's the inventor, the originator of the neoprene sports brace. So the last few years he was with the Eagles, he had this company that he started, and he was actually supplying all the NFL teams and college teams with these products. He decided to quit working for the Eagles and go into this full time, and did. And actually, it was a blessing for our family, because at one time it employed everybody in our family, myself, my siblings. The only one that wasn't smart enough to get involved was my mom. She was a school teacher, and she finished 30 years at a local elementary school back in Pennsylvania. So,
oh, that's cool.
It was a good adventure for me. I always felt bad that one, I didn't finish my commitment to the Marine Corps, and it was only because they wouldn't let me. But two, that I never had that adventure where I really got to go somewhere and be in a hot zone or be able, well, say it the wrong way. I never felt that I was in a position to test myself, where I would have my mettle tested. And I think that's an important thing for all of us, and it's different for all of us. And for some people, it has to do with finances. For other people, it has to do with family relationships. For some people, it's substance. We all have our challenges, and can we meet those challenges and persevere?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my story in Reader's Digest version. But Operation Wide Receiver recounts the 3 years that I worked as a confidential source for ATF for the supposed reason of bringing down Mexican drug cartels.
Do you think? Well, let me see how I could pose this question. How come Hollywood never made a movie out of that, or the things that happened? Do you think it's just like Hollywood's and that's not a good story for them to tell right now, or?
Well, yeah, I think you have to look at Hollywood and getting a pro-military, pro-law enforcement story done is hard, and there's some obvious movies that have been, like American Sniper and so forth. That was a great movie about a great guy, a great American. Hard to say, we talked briefly about Jay Dobbins. Jay wrote a book called No Angel that recounted his experience as an undercover agent. First one to infiltrate or to get patched into the Hells Angels. Mm-hmm. And he wrote that book many years ago, maybe 12 or 15 years ago. And I think he's still talking to studios. I don't think it's as easy as one might imagine. Mm-hmm. Might be different now that we have Amazon Prime and so forth that are making their own movies Netflix, and doing their own financing and stuff.
Those guys don't say no to movie deals. So Jay Dobson, you're speaking of
Dobbins,
him. Yeah. Dobbins. Okay, so that's a different person from
and John Dotson.
Oh, okay.
Jay Dobbins was the undercover of the Hells Angels. John Dotson is the one who became the whistleblower regarding Fast and Furious.
Oh, okay. And so the Jay that you're talking about, I think he was in Vincent's book, right? Was he mentioned?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So several times. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've got to try to get him on here one of these days. So you're friends with him?
I know him.
Oh, you know him. Okay.
And I consider him a friend, whether that's mutual or not. I don't know. Jay's a very intense, solemn dude. Mm-hmm. Good guy. I like him because he epitomizes everything I think a federal agent should be or had been. Mm-hmm. And the same people that screwed me over are the same exact group of people that screwed him over. Mm-hmm. Long story short, the Hells Angels came and burned his house down one night when he was away, and his wife and kids were there. ATF executives tried to frame him as burning down his own house to promote his book.
What?
Instead of investigating to find out who really, and catching those people. There's a certain amount of animosity and jealousness and pettiness among that leadership who felt he was getting too many interviews and too many stories on the news and so forth. Mm-hmm. And they decided to make him the bad guy. He sued the government a bunch of times. He's won a bunch of times. But like he told me, he said he talked to one of the government's lawyers one day before the trial began. And the lawyer said, "You're going to win today, Jay." So there's no doubt you're going to win. And you're absolutely right with this lawsuit. But we got hundreds of lawyers. And we got all the time in the world. And we have an unlimited budget. Can you keep up with us? Mm-hmm. So
that's what the government told him. They could just keep coming at him.
Yeah. So, and that's exactly what happened. He did win that day, and then it went to appeals court and shot down, and then, in the end, he ended up with nothing. I mean, basically, he sued the government for not providing him protection from these people that were trying to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, that's man. You know what? I don't know if it's possible, but I would absolutely invite him if he does this kind of stuff to come here on the show. Let me switch for a little bit. Richard Maunder from over in England. Shout out to Richard Maunder. It's late over there, and he's still up watching us, and I appreciate that. Lots of folks watch us live overseas and also listen to the audio side of the podcast. He says, "I was amazed that 13 Hours ever got made into a film." That's the whole Benghazi story, right?
Right.
And we've had Tig from Benghazi on. Who was I forget the name of
Tig's a good guy.
Yeah, Tig's a real cool dude. And what's the name of the other guy that
you have Oz and Tonto?
Tonto, yes. I've been on Tonto's podcast, but he wasn't there, but I've hung out and spent some time with Tonto. Yeah, that's another crazy thing somewhere along the lines of what we're talking about, where, the government officials and the government itself lets down the folks who actually go out there and put their lives on the line to maintain whatever this illusion is that we have of freedom in America, right?
Right. And, when I said earlier that I didn't take the retribution and stuff that was shown to me personally, same thing for Chris Stevenson. Is Stevenson or Stevens, the ambassador that was killed over there? He was just a sacrifice. He was just the wrong guy in the right place to best suit their purposes. And hey, Chris, nothing personal, but we're going to let you get killed tonight. Sorry. And those guys that were at the CIA compound, they weren't supposed to go over there. They were ordered by the director over there, don't go over there. And they said, screw you, we're going over there. And unfortunately, the delays, they got there a little bit late. But, yeah, it's a crazy story.
Yeah, I mean, I know just from hanging out with Tig and talking to him, and he came on the podcast before and talked about it. I mean, man. And to think, like Tig is a big tough guy, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about tough guys, he's a tough guy, but he's always such like a happy-go-lucky person. I've never been around him and been able to like stay miserable. He's always happy and laughing and stuff, but I don't think people really realize how much damage he took in that whole thing and how that's like lasting through his whole life, and that he has to maintain that level, knowing that there's people in his country that would have rather that none of those guys made it back here.
Right.
It's crazy, and I think that's what a lot of us are dealing with and trying to in these days. I'm talking to so many gun guys. I don't know if you feel that way, right? But I'm talking to a lot. I was on We Like Shooting the other day, and Sean from We Like Shooting was saying, man, in all my life, this is the one time where I'm really worried about America.
Well, I think everybody's in that boat right now. It's just with this last election, and listen, I don't care who you are, but how can you not feel like this was stolen from us, that this was taken away? I guess now we know how Hillary felt, right? It's like it was a sure thing, and then it was like pulled right out of her hands.
Well, I mean,
clutches.
it was undeniable. It was undeniable then, but they weren't prepared for what Trump did. I mean, these guys were really prepared for Trump to lose, and I'm sure they tried to do things back then, and it was overridden. And in a lot of places, it was still overridden. But these guys learned lessons from the last time.
Oh yeah, and we have to be a lot smarter the next time. But you know what? With them controlling Congress and the Senate, how can we pass any kind of reasonable voter bill? That one person, one vote.
Yeah.
Let's be an American citizen. Let's be here legally. Let's be at this legal address, and let's cast this vote, and let's have it count. It's the point is right now is my feeling is like, why even bother?
Really?
Good.
So do you think this, from your point of view, I'm very interested in knowing, what do you think can be done to give back people confidence in the voting system that we have? Because, I mean, I feel we're just the same as like any third world country. You know how Jimmy Carter's always going to those third world countries and trying to make sure the vote is fair?
Right.
He needs to somehow start doing that here. What do you think could be done to make that happen?
It's hard to say, and it's like so many different stories were out about this one, from somebody running the same ballot through repeatedly, and to others that had. There's a story on Facebook I saw about Skinny Joey Merlino in Philadelphia, that he was paid $30,000 to have a bunch of old ladies fill out ballots, and the only name they were checking was the presidential one. The rest of it was blank. And that was good enough. Just do it fast. And he paid each of them $1,000 that night, supposedly.
Yeah, look at the Project Veritas stuff that came out well before the elections on what Ilhan Omar was doing in her state. Did you see any of that stuff?
No, I didn't.
They were basically, so Ilhan Omar, her constituency, or basically her people, who came over to this country just the same way that she did, and they were going around and taking these people's ballots and making them vote a certain way and paying them to vote and basically strong-arming them to vote, and Project Veritas exposed that, and no one investigated that thing, to my knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously we see all of this and no one's still investigating it. And it doesn't look like they're going to change anything in America when it comes to voting, and we have the means, the ways and the means in America. You know, I was joking about Jimmy Carter, right? But I mean, seriously,
Right.
we've got the ways and the means in America to make a fair system of voting, and it's not about like who I want to become president has to be the president. I think we've all lived and seen a world run by people who we didn't vote for. You know,
Yeah.
is it time for someone to go out?
No, I just let him in. So
he just came back
now.
in.
Yeah, that's the thing is and why isn't this stuff being investigated?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Trump had won a second election, but there were these rumors about it, wouldn't there be a bunch of people jumping up and down to have investigations about this? It's just, as a conservative, as a Republican, maybe even as a libertarian, there's a whole different set of rules for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this purge that's going on right now, are you affected in any way? Did you ever get on Parler? I know you don't do a lot of social media stuff. I know we're friends on Facebook. You get into any of this?
I do have a Twitter account, and I can honestly say I think the only thing that I've ever tweeted was articles of mine that were published in online somewhere. Mm-hmm. That's it. You know, I don't spend a lot of time on there. I probably spend too much time on Facebook because I'm comfortable with it and it's easy to navigate. I'm not on Parler and MeWe or any of those others.
Do you do YouTube?
I don't. No, I never did.
Mm-hmm. So what's your vision here, man? How do you think about that at all, or do you just like do your thing every day and try to ignore this? Or what's your vision for the direction that the country's going to go now?
Well, it's scary. I mean, you know, we just got a shit sandwich and we're being told to shut up and be happy with it. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, I think the critical thing for us to look at is when law enforcement and military people start disobeying direct orders because they view them as not being lawful orders or Constitution compliant orders. And if we start to get that tip where people leave federal agencies, where they leave even state police agencies, local police agencies, where people are leaving the military and coming over to the other side, yeah, it's going to be a sad time for us, and it may be we're at the point where our country needs that.
So you're saying that's like a bellwether for folks to look out for, then?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. What do you think is the future of the firearms industry? So that I don't know what's today, like 13th or something like that. You know,
right,
in the next week or so, we should be going to SHOT Show. I should be bumping into you somewhere around SHOT Show.
Right.
You know,
yeah, but it's canceled. So
yeah, what's going on, man?
And here's another thing. You know, at this point, we all know people that have died from the coronavirus, but we also know that, you know, was it 10% or 1 in 10 of 1% people end up dying from this.
Yeah.
And we shut our economy down. We shut our businesses down. We got mail-in votes. It was a big help, right? So how was this virus politicized, and who did it help the most in the end? It's just brought back a bunch of distrust among the government that we have, and I don't mean the federal government. Look at the ridiculous things that our New York City mayor and New York governor have done in hypocrisy. They make these edicts and then they're out violating their own ordinances. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy stuff. I think I'm trying to think if I've known someone personally that died. I can't think of that. I do know people that got it. John Voorhees, by the way, says he tested positive. I'm sorry to hear that. There's quite a few folks that have either been on the podcast here who have tested positive for COVID-19. Most of those folks have recovered. I hope John gets better soon. My dad in New York had COVID, and he has different complications. Old dude. Lots of different things. He's had cancer, different stuff going on, but he recovered from that. Basically, he's one of those old bastards out there that can't die.
Right.
There's some dudes like that.
I think most people are. I think I had it in March, and of course I couldn't get a doctor's appointment anywhere to go confirm it. So I had the classic symptoms. It took me about a week to get over, and it didn't linger, fortunately for me, and I, felt better almost right away. We shut our entire country down for that.
Now so I'm in Florida. You're in Arizona. Did Arizona really shut down? Because I always tell people that Florida never really shut down. I've been going the whole time, and there were businesses that decided to work from home and stuff like that. But I feel like Florida didn't shut down, and why it's still thriving versus other places.
We had a month, I want to say March and April, where most businesses were closed. Grocery store was open, Walmart was open, fast food places were open, but most people were working from home. We have a very liberal city council and mayor here in Tucson. We have a mask requirement that you.
Yeah. And Arizona didn't go for Trump, did they? I don't know if that's real. I was thinking about you.
They did, but it was. We're one of those states.
Yeah, can you imagine an election night and they paused everything?
Right. Yeah.
When has that ever happened? Never. That alone is cause for the pause.
And like Florida, every weekend for probably the last 8 weeks up to the election, Trump rallies everywhere. Thousands of pickup trucks with American flags.
I knew Trump was going to win Florida, and I'm sure it probably looked to you like, hey, there's no way Trump is losing Arizona. I mean, people told me that.
Never.
And Trump did win Florida, but I think it has a lot to do with our politicians here, right? Versus, let's say, Georgia, where he didn't. How did he not win Georgia? Same way that these 2 Senate seats were lost in Georgia because they paused it.
Right.
Lo and behold. Really crazy. Let me just get a couple of comments in here from the audience. Shout out to all those folks out there. You know what? If like 20 or 30 of you guys, it's close to 100 people watching us. If you smash the thumbs ups, we'll get to 100, which will be awesome. Devil Dog 81mm says it will be hidden and silenced if people start leaking or disobeying orders. True. It's still going to get out there somehow, but I think it's still a bellwether. I'm gonna really think deeply about what Mike said. That is a bellwether. If you want to know.
Well, when you have the director of an agency, or you have a general in command of a state National Guard unit that resigns, if they feel strongly enough about resigning, they're going to feel strongly enough about talking to a news media outlet, whether it's given the time of day, depending on politics. The media is definitely influenced by the Democratic Party. But if it gets out there and it's around, then we'll find out, I think.
Yeah. This is from Adam Casey. He says Project Veritas released a new video earlier today showing where the woman they uncovered committing election fraud in Texas was actually arrested today for the voter fraud that she committed. If you guys don't follow Project Veritas, I think you should. I think it's shameful, though, that there's people in the media, one, completely ignoring what Project Veritas is doing, and there's definitely people in law enforcement ignoring it. It's like you were talking about Cheryl Todd, right? If you didn't have Cheryl doing what she does and folks like Vince doing what they do, what happened with your story would have never come to the light.
Right. And, you asked about making a movie. It's just not a popular subject. I mean, regarding my book, there's probably been less than 5,000 copies sold, honestly. There
was a couple of folks buying it today, hopefully. I don't know.
I hope so. And after you buy it, pass it around your group of friends. Believe me, it's more important that people read that book and learn something from it than whatever measly royalty check. And to be honest with you, beyond the initial upfront money I got on that book, I've never received another check, and they said it just hasn't sold enough copies. So
I think for you, it's getting the message out there, right?
Yeah, it's every time I can take a dig at ATF for what they did to me, I'm happy. I mean, you've seen me before, you as well as other people do podcasts and stuff. If somebody asks me, I'll make myself available because I want people to know what the truth is, because there's a lot of guys like me out there, guys that are very patriotic Americans, would do anything for their country. And that's the position I was in. The mistake that I made was my love of country should somehow extend to the government, and it doesn't, because there's nothing I wouldn't do for my country. And I hope people who read the book or people who know me and know my actions understand that. But my government, I wouldn't cross the street for my government. Not again. That was the mistake I made initially.
Yeah, don't, if someone from the government comes a knocking, don't answer the door. Don't answer the door. Call your lawyer, who's going to tell you don't answer the door.
And my lawyer had that conversation several times with me. And I was like, these guys love me. They're not going to.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it is. Look, I think people should be made aware of it. I do. Whenever we have these discussions about the ATF, I bring you up. I'm glad I met you. I think that you did the right thing both times. Probably more than once, but at least there's two situations there, I think, where you did the right thing in terms of doing it in the first place, and then, fighting and not rolling over for those guys. And folks, just, we just need to be aware of these things. There are people like us out there. It's going to be kind of tough because it looks like these guys are winning. I believe that they're going to start eating themselves very shortly after the inauguration.
I agree with you. When they turn on themselves, things are going to get really messy. But I do hope that Mr. Trump, President Trump, put some effort into developing a third party where we're not dealing with people like Mitch McConnell anymore. We get infused with some younger blood and with people who enter politics and are committed to doing the right thing instead of making a fortune for themselves.
I would like to see, so I'm not sure if we can do something with the Libertarian Party, but maybe we can go further and actually really take over the Republican Party. I think the big problem for Trump is that he was able to get in there and do it, and he's not a politician, and he had a lot of these Republicans around him that basically signed on to bring him down. And we're seeing it here, even at the end, you're still seeing that. Like, it just seems to me from the beginning, if you look at the Obama administration, there was no one stabbing Obama in the back up till now. It's not really happening. We might have seen like one thing here or there, but not really. Not anything that's really memorable. But a lot of this has come from his own side, from the people that he put around him, and probably a lot of that is because he's not a politician, so he didn't really necessarily know who to put there, and he put these people in positions, and those same people all the time were, I mean, all the leaks and stuff that was coming out of there. It's, I mean, one of these days when they do the forensics on this, I think people are going to be blown away if it ever really comes out what happened in this whole situation.
I agree with you. People talk about General Kelly and Mad Dog Mattis, both great Marine generals. Let me tell you, my limited experience from Marine Corps is you don't get to be a flag officer. How can I say this delicately? Without having kissed somebody's ass at some point in your career. It just doesn't happen. The upper ranks of the military are every bit as political as Congress and Senate and presidency. And if you happen to run afoul of one of the top guys, you can kiss your career goodbye. You just are not going to make it. But if you have the top guy's blessing and you sell your soul to get that, then yeah, maybe you'll make flag officer.
Okay. Interesting.
For whatever that's worth.
For what it's worth, I get it. There's a message in that. There's a message. Let's get this in from Armament and Axes. He gave us $5. He says, who died from the flu this year? Who died of old age? It's all COVID, right? They made this politically driven and out to be Ebola type of a situation. I know someone was saying earlier that now the elections are over. Cuomo was saying you got to open up New York. You're going to probably hear that from the folks in California as well. Yeah, a lot of that was this whole feeling that they wanted everyone to feel isolated and for people to feel like everyone else was the enemy. I was speaking to a friend's dad yesterday that called me up. My friend's a black guy's dad, obviously black, and he called me up and he was like, retired dude. And he's like, you know what? I want to get into guns. I never did it. I never wanted to get into guns or do anything like that, but now I'm going to do it because I see on the news that these Trumpers want to kill me. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, where's this coming from? And he was like, oh, if you look at what happened at the Capitol and all that. And I was like, so do you remember when they were burning down cities, when Black Lives Matter was burning down cities, and they were saying that Antifa co-opted the message, and those were the ones burning down the cities, and there were black people saying, we don't want to burn our cities and our communities down. We don't want this. What makes you think that that's different from now? And if there weren't a bunch of white people saying, look at this, we're going to go get guns, maybe there was. To be honest with you, maybe there was, right? We had record gun sales last year. And a big percentage of that was new people, but also a lot of black people getting into it. And now from this incident in D.C., a lot of people are getting on board and doing this thing. And I'm just thinking, what's happening to people? Why aren't they connecting the dots of all these things happening and realize that they're being manipulated? And even now you're going to get into...
That's true.
And I was saying to him, so now you're going to get into guns. You think that there's some white guys who supported Trump that are your enemy. And I was like, when you go to a gun store to buy a gun, who do you think's going to own that store? I said, by the way, it's going to be some white guys who voted for Trump. And they're going to sell you a gun. And they're going to help you get a CCW. And they're going to train you. And I was like, do you want to think about that for a second? So it's weird, and I think, man, how do we get here that people just aren't really seeing this? Everyone's just compartmentalized like that.
Yeah, I don't. I think I'm pretty average as a shooter, and the thought of me having to use my gun to kill somebody because their skin color is different is a pretty foreign idea. Who am I going to shoot? I'm going to shoot somebody kicking in my door. I'm going to shoot somebody trying to harm somebody in my family. I don't care what color they are. And I think a very, very, very large percentage of the American shooting community feels exactly the same way. We've left that stuff behind with the last generations. Hopefully, I'm not to say that there aren't some white supremacists out there, but if you listen to the news, it makes it sound like anybody white with a gun is a white supremacist. That's just not the case.
Yeah, I don't know how we got there. I don't know how we got there, and I don't know why people feel that way. I mean, I asked him. I said, "Is this what you see in your neighborhood?" You know. And I mean, yes, he lives here in Gainesville, and Gainesville's a very liberal, hippie neighborhood. There's lots of white people, lots of black people. You know, if you don't see that and you're seeing something on the news, why are you believing that that's true? And then why, if you really believe that's true, why are you seeking out anything from the people? You know, you really have to think about all this. And I was saying to him, and think about what Biden's going to do. If you're afraid and you're going to get a gun, Biden is now saying he's going to take that from you. So you just have to think about it, and I don't think everyone's thinking about it. What we've got some time here. Any cool guns? I know this is like the majority of what you do. Anything really cool, badass, interesting? You think the folks should be? I know right now a lot of us are paying more attention to politics than guns, but I think fair question.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, I've got 2 cool pistols in.
We can't show anything because YouTube's actually watching me when I go live now. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't show any.
We
can show pictures and stuff like that. But
unfortunately, these gun companies, they set their embargoes and new product releases for SHOT Show.
Yeah.
And even though we're not having SHOT Show this year, they're still timing it as if we were having a SHOT Show. So they're both, one is a dedicated match gun, and the other is a new carry gun with an interesting twist. So I can't mention either of those.
Did you ever get your hand? I know there's a lot of 5.7 stuff coming out, and like Kel-Tec. I don't know whether or not you're into Kel-Tec. Kel-Tec has the P50, I think, which is basically.
I saw that. That looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I'm interested in, I'm supposed to get a test gun, but haven't got it yet, is the Diamondback Db57, which.
Right.
You can actually put a brace stock on, and if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And probably would be what I would do.
Yeah.
Just to wring some accuracy out. I have a fellow gun writer friend in Phoenix who has one and is very happy and very pleased with the accuracy.
Okay. A lot of people ask me to check into that. Unfortunately, and I'm not trying to drag you into this. Diamondback hates me. They're in Florida, but they don't like something I've said about their pistols in the past. Because I reached out to
something to do with Josh.
No, but remember they made some pistols, right? And when they like handguns, and when they first put those out, they were pretty bad. And so I said things about that. I like their ARs and stuff like that. I think they've done a good, decent job with their ARs. And they even came out with newer versions of those handguns that I thought were a lot better. And we got out there and we said, hey, this is a lot better. But for some reason, when I reached out to them about that 5.7 AR, because I thought that was a cool idea, they were like, yeah, we'll never... You said something bad about us, we will never, ever. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'll get my hands on it. But I am looking forward, actually, to trying it out because it uses the 5.7 pistol magazines, right?
Right. Yeah. It's a neat, handy little gun. Perfect for a backpack and a red dot, and nice little PDW that is car portable and that you could actually maneuver it. While sitting in your driver's seat. Yeah,
I think it's a cool idea. One way or the other, I'll check it out, or maybe. I think the 5.7 market's kind of opening up a little bit. Although that Kel-Tec is expensive, man. $1,000 for a Kel-Tec pistol.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Right? That's weird.
Yeah. Well, have you tried to buy 5.7 ammo lately?
Well, all ammo lately. I haven't tried to get 5.7. Ammo's kind of difficult. But I think FN opened up the. Didn't FN release the patent on that, and other people can make 5.7 now?
I'm sure there are other companies making it. I just haven't been able to find any of it. I happen to have, I think, 4 or 5 boxes that I got when I did my original 5.7 pistol evaluation years and years ago, and I've still got that. I'll have to see if I can find some more if I get that DB57 in.
If you get it in, I would really like to know what you think about it. You know,
Okay.
I would really be interested in knowing what you think about that thing. Someone's asking here, I think, who is this? Armory and Axis says, how's Mike's new puppy? Len Holt says, what's the pup's name? You've got a new puppy?
Well, he's going to be 4 in March.
Okay.
His name's Gunner.
Oh, okay.
Gunner, and people think that he got named Gunner because I like guns and shooting, but actually, he's the world's second gunner Detty. Gunner is Marine slang for warrant officer. My dad was a warrant officer during World War II, but the troops called him Gunner Detty. So I was either going to call him Gunner or Moose was his nickname.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
I didn't want to call him Moose, so Gunner ended up being the name for him.
Cool. Very cool. All right. So listen, we're at 9 o'clock. Here's what I want to do. If the folks out there want to follow up with you or see the work that you're doing, where can they see that? How can they follow up or keep in touch with you?
In terms of gun articles and stuff, a lot, because I work so much for Athlon Outdoors, a lot of that stuff gets put up at tactical-life.com. And if they want to check up on me personally, check me out on Facebook at Mike Detty. I do have a Facebook page for my book. It's Guns Across the Border. And a lot of times I'll put up some old interviews or stuff there, or more current happenings on the border regarding gun seizures and so forth.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Black Metal Forge says, hi, Mike. I'm not sure if that's...
Hello, sir.
Yeah. So cool. We're going to wrap it up here, but I would like you guys to check out Mike Detty. Check out his book. I think Lola put some stuff in the description of this, as well as check out Vincent Cefalu. He's got a
Rat Snake.
Yeah, Rat
Great
Snake.
book.
Yes, absolutely. Some good books out there. Maybe we'll get both of you guys to come back in the future here. Definitely our prayers and thoughts go out to Vincent, who's going under the knife. He's probably going to be getting operated on and sipping on some Jack Daniels, smoking and cigarette, until they put him out. But hey, you got to live. You have the right to live this life the way you want to live it.
Yeah, God bless him, and thank God we have good Americans like Vince to look out for us.
Yeah, God bless him. God bless you too, Mike. I appreciate you coming on. How's your mom, by the way? Your mom's still out there kicking butts, man.
Yeah, turned 95 a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations to her. Happy birthday.
She is saucy and surly, and nothing much has changed with her.
Yeah, I've got to come visit you guys in Arizona sometime.
Please do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do that. All right, so stay right there, Mike. I'm going to be right back so you can give the final thoughts. Shout out to all the folks who are here joining us. Thanks so much. Go to hankstrange.com. Sign up for the email list. Make sure you guys check out Harry's Holsters. Use the code HankStrange, and that'll get you 10% off there. Lots of folks buying guns. You're gonna need a holster for your gun. So check that out. I'm going to run in the end, and we'll be right back. All right, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, smash the thumbs ups, ring the bell so you can be notified whenever we go live. We're going to take the audio out of this and put it up on iTunes and other places that you guys can get your audio podcast so you can listen to it there. I really do want to thank Mike Detty and Vincent Cefalu for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. Mike, I'm going to let you give the last word to the folks out there. What would you like to leave these folks with?
Boy, that's that's a good one. Like you said earlier, anytime the government knocks on your door and asks for your help, think twice. And I'm speaking from experience. I was far too eager and ambitious to do what I saw as a patriotic chore, and I should have been not quite so naive when it came to helping my government.
Right. I think well said. You guys should pay attention to that. Thanks so much, Mike, for joining me here and hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We're out of here, guys. We will see you back here tomorrow. Peace.
Thanks, Hank.